Now, India's aviation sector viewers could be headed for costly operations and possible higher ticket prices as geopolitical tensions in West Asia begin to impact fuel costs. The government has indicated that prices of aviation turbine fuel may rise from April 1st, raising concerns about a potential increase in airfares. Union Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu said ATF prices are revised on the first day of every month, meaning any increase could take effect from April the 1st. He added that discussions are ongoing with airlines to manage the impact. While acknowledging that airlines are under financial strain, the minister stressed that the government's priority is to ensure safe and uninterrupted flight operations without immediately burdening passengers. Despite the expected increase in fuel prices, the government has assured that efforts are being made to prevent an immediate spike in ticket fares. Officials say protecting passenger interest remains a key focus even as airlines grapple with rising costs. Minister Naidu indicated that given the current global situation, an increase in both crude oil and ATF prices is almost certain. However, the ministry aims to ensure that this does not translate into a sharp surge in ticket prices. Despite the assurance, the removal of fare caps gives airlines full freedom to determine ticket prices. Until now, domestic fares were broadly capped between 7,500 and 15,000 rupees, with some routes touching 18,000. That ceiling now stands scrapped, paving the way for dynamic pricing driven entirely by demand. For passengers, this means a likely increase in ticket costs, especially on high traffic routes. Airlines will now be able to pass on operational costs more directly to flyers, without regulatory limits acting as a buffer. To offset rising costs, domestic carriers have already begun imposing fuel surcharges. Air India and Air India Express have introduced a surcharge of 399 rupees on domestic tickets, while international routes are seeing additional charges ranging from $10 to $200. Now, Indigo has implemented surcharges between 425 and rupees 2,300 depending on distance, while Akasa Air has added charges ranging from 199 to 1,300 based on flight duration. International airfares have already been very high since the Iran-Israel war, as operating airlines' capacity to and from the West has shrunk and the big three Gulf carriers are flying very few flights. And with that, I'd like to introduce all my guests. Now, joining me is Mr. Dilip Cherian. He's an image guru. Dr. Vandana Singh is an aviation expert. And Captain C.S. Randhawa, President, Federation of Indian Pilots. I want to first go across to Mr. Dilip Cherian, of course. Now, Mr. Cherian, whatever is happening geopolitically, I want to begin by asking you, perhaps Trump and Netanyahu didn't imagine the aftermath of this war, really. Look at what's happening all around, and especially when it comes to the aviation industry.
Certainly, both the major protagonists had no clue what they were stepping into. Netanyahu maybe had a slightly better clue than Trump did, and Trump, I think, was in many senses led by the nose. But let's go beyond that. The approach that Iran took to its defense, which included attacks on the oil facilities in the UAE, is a route that has worked very well for it to bring global attention to its cause. So we may have objections to it. We also recognize that its ability to have a stranglehold on the Gulf of, the Gulf of Hormuz and the Straits of Hormuz, in a sense, is one of the big dangers. But for aviation companies, I think the options as far as fuel are concerned are many more sources of supply than just from here. So I'm sure that while government recognizes the need to allow companies to raise rates, which is actually a matter of just survival for many of these airlines, I hope that the impact is not as high as we thought it would be at the very start of this war.
All right, I want to now go across to Dr. Vandana Singh. Now, Dr. Singh, with ATF prices that are expected to rise from April the 1st, how significant and how real will the impact be on airline operating costs?
Absolutely. Vaishali, you hit the nail over there. It's absolutely significant. Do not forget that ATF is anyway going through the roof. The Brent crude, like you mentioned, is already crossed for $147 per barrel and going up as predicted by Goldman Sachs, if you see the latest report. And you look at India, where VAT contributes to almost 45% of the operating costs of an airline. And while we have been hoping that something would have come out in the budget where there would be some rationalization of taxes as far as India is concerned, with the value added tax, as well as with the coming under the GST umbrella, none of that happened. And therefore, yes, the impact is going to be extremely high. And ATF, when we talk about the air turbine fuel, it is very, very clear that this was going to go through the roof. Now you have fuel surcharge. On top of it, you have war risk surcharge. And this surcharge is applying all over the stream, be it airlines, be it the ships, the shipping industry, and be it throughout the air freight, air cargo industry. So it's in fact impacting everywhere. But in India, I do believe that there could have been a better rationalization here. This could have been looked into. We were really hoping it would have come out. It did not happen, so definitely the Indian carriers are going to suffer more. And I would also like to state here that the timing of the government, just yesterday we spoke about 60% of standard seats, which will not have, a price on top of it, and 40% will obviously have it. And today we see the domestic capping that's come in. So please see the routes, Delhi, Mumbai, or a Delhi, Bangalore, or a Mumbai, Bangalore is going to go up through the roof. And here we talk about Ude Desh ka Aam Nagrik and Hawai Chappal se Hawai Jahaz, whereas the affordability gap is totally widening out, Vaishali. So what do you say here? We knew this could come in 48 hours, but this is totally unpredictable, and we are not happy with the timing of the government over here. And they should have done something about the rationalization of taxes, which they did not. So the Indian carriers are definitely more impacted than the Cathays or the TGs or the Air New Zealands or the Lufthansa's, KLM, Air France of the world. They have their fuel hedging price strategy in place. In our country, nothing like that is happening. Plus the burden of VAT. Over to you, ma'am.
Dr. Singh, it's interesting, I was just thinking that a decision that two men have made will ultimately impact the common man, like you and me. This is absolutely, it's just frustrating to really talk about, but I want to go across to Mr. Dilip Cherian. Mr. Cherian, could transparent fare breakdowns help reduce passenger frustration?
I think the frustration comes from two things. One is a lack of choices. Today, as passengers contemplate the fact that, for the most part, if one does not take Akasa, which is still a growing and a fledgling airline, if one looks at the other two, the choices are so small. India is, for the country of its size, which had ambitions of allowing the common person, as Dr. Vandana Singh said, to actually take wings, should have encouraged and ensured the growth of at least 3 or 4 airlines. So I think that's the first frustration. On the price front, yes, we need to also understand that the price is a large bit of it is on account of the taxation that government is imposing on ATF, on the fact that this, because it is, on one hand it believes it's a luxury, on the other hand it professes that it is a necessity for the common man. So extraordinarily high prices of ATF have made ATF a very large part of all airline costs. And today, if you combine high ATF prices with high prices in our airports, we really are talking of airlines being caught in a position where increased efficiency by them is not helping. So will that help the passenger understand the trauma that the airlines themselves are going through? Will it allow them to feel a little bit more reassured that they can see what is actually happening? Because unfortunately, when ATF comes down, you don't find a similar cutting back of prices happening soon enough. The real problem, as I said, is the fact that this is a sector where we are seeing more deaths of companies than the rise of hope.
Dr. Singh, I want to come to you now with this question. Because you're an aviation expert, I want to understand from you what routes or sectors are likely to see the steepest fare increases.
Okay, when you look at it domestically and now you look at VAT, you would see, just a few minutes back, I was on another channel, we were talking about the Jewar International Airport that's being now inaugurated on the 28th of March by the Prime Minister. And if you look at it, I'm just coming to your point, it is the 5th international airport in UP itself. And if you look at the VAT, it's 1%. But you go down to Tamil Nadu, it is 29%, Vaishali. So the routes that you're looking at are definitely, you're looking at, let's say, a Delhi-Mumbai, you're looking at a Mumbai-Bangalore, you're looking at Delhi-Bangalore. Please see that the fares are already rising through the roof, and these are the routes which are likely to be most affected because there is no rationalization of taxes in our country, and we have been fighting for it. I, as the chairperson for FAII, then you have the Federation of Indian Pilots, everybody has been putting their, flag up to really say, please bring it under one umbrella, please do the rationalization of taxes, and let's at least compete with other international carriers. We are not able to compete with anybody. So first of all, that has to be looked at. The routes I already mentioned to you, which are going to be impacted. And I am really now hoping that Jewar, that's coming up as the Asia's largest airport with the best infrastructure and warehousing and infrastructure, cargo facilities, etc., that this really gives some wings, to us to boast of. Otherwise, it's very much a catch-22 situation over here, and the government really needs to come in. Because on one side, if they take away the capping to reduce the burden on the airlines, then how are they going to monitor? What is the defined threshold or the trajectory over here? What is the enforcement mechanism by the regulator over here? Or do they expect self-regulation here? And I must say, we are far beyond self-regulation in our country. There is no discipline, there is no professionalism. You saw, Vaishali, how the crisis, how DXB airport has handled its passengers right now, and how professionally they have managed each and every customer and client impacted by the crisis. Go back to December and look at what Indigo did. And when this happened, all the reaction that happened from the government happened much, much later. The corrections came in much later after the passengers had already suffered. The penalty of 20,000 crores on Indigo was very less. And where was the moral responsibility or the ethics of Air India when they charged one way Bangalore, Delhi, at that time 68,000 one way? What did they do? They made hay while the sun shines. All of them had a jolly good time. It was an abuse of dominance. So routes, as I mentioned to you, are being impacted. But as common citizens, definitely it is a reason to be concerned of. And I don't see how everybody will afford to fly. And are we going to tell people that peak season coming, there is going to be an exploitation, so please don't take don't fly anywhere during peak season? What do they do during school holidays? Where do they take their children? So there's a lot to look into, and I do feel it is bad timing that is happening right now as far as this capping measures have gone. You're giving relief again and giving in away to these two airlines, and you watch the capping will come back soon when it goes through the roof, because there has to be.
All right. I'd like to thank Mr. Dirupcharian and Dr. Vandana Singh for joining